right, for our final review, we're looking back to ancient China and ancient India, because Buddhism started in India. Raise your hand if you know how many steps are on the path to Buddhism to lead to Nirvana. All right, hold your hand up if you know how many. Okay, hold up the number. Yes, it is the eightfold path to reach Nirvana. Raise your hand if you know what Nirvana means. Okay, Nirvana is the escape from reincarnation. You become enlightened, you no longer become reincarnated. Very similar to Hinduism. Although Buddhism is not a religion, that's how it's different from Hinduism. It's just kind of a way of life. They do both believe in reincarnation, and they do both believe in escape from reincarnation. Anybody remember what the Buddhist word for escape from reincarnation? Raise your hand if you know. Starts with an M. It's moksha. Moksha. Raise your hand if you know what river did the Harappan civilization begin near? Right, the Indus River, right? What are the tallest mountains in the world? You know that. That's the Himalayas. Good. What are the winds called that causes the heavy seasonal rains? Most people get this confused. Most people think these are the rains. These are the monsoon winds. Monsoon. So what we're doing today, Roman origin myths and facts about the Etruscans, the kind of the first Roman civilization. So our head scratcher, we'll give you about 1 minute. Do we have any myths about our nation's founding, or is it just history and facts? Write down something you know about where we came from in the USA. So go ahead and give you about 1 minute. Write something you know about the founding of our country. I learned this when I was a kid. This was important to know. This type of patriotism, you learned all this stuff. Raise your hand if you think you know something fantastic about our country's origin that may or may not be true. You think you know something? What about George Washington cutting down the cherry tree? Did you all learn that? I don't know if that's true. That doesn't sound very true. Or the I cannot tell a lie? I don't know. Everybody learn about Benjamin Franklin flying the kite, discovering electricity. Yeah, that's true. That did happen. It was his son who was holding the kite. But there are also some facts, too. There are some facts that we did, like Thomas Jefferson writing the Declaration of Independence, things of that nature that are true. George Washington had 2 horses shot out from under him, had 4 holes shot in his coat, but he was never wounded. He fought in wars for like 15 years, 2 different wars, was never even wounded. Next. So what are we doing? We're examining the origin myths and facts about ancient Rome. Why are we doing this? Well, for one thing, this is a Tennessee tested standard, right? So wherever you are, it might not be a Tennessee tested standard, but it might be a standard in your state. Just because we're learning Tennessee standards doesn't mean it doesn't match with what you're learning too. In order to learn about a civilization, it is good to know what they thought of themselves and where they came from. This isn't always a religious study. Sometimes it is both religious and historical. So our essential question, write this down. How do people explain where they came from? More product placement for Diet Dr. Nuff. It's delicious. I'm hoping Dr. Nuff will send me some of these if they ever watch these videos. Big shout out to my nephews watching in Virginia, watching these videos in Virginia. Daily historical lesson from Uncle Kevin. Hand up if you're still writing. All right, hit it. Beginnings. The legend, Romulus and Remus. According to legend, these were twin brothers given up at birth, found by a wolf and nursed to health. A shepherd found them and raised them to adulthood. The boys built the city of Rome. Remus made fun of his brother's wall, and they couldn't decide who should be the king. So Romulus killed his brother and became the king. Now this right here, as you're filling in the notes, it's going to tell you a little bit about what the Romans thought about themselves. These might not be on the notes. If it's not on the notes, that's fine. They thought that the strong should lead, right? You got to take initiative. You know, if you got to kill somebody to get ahead, that's what you do. The Romans were very ambitious. This also sounds similar to what the Spartans did, right? Remember how the Spartans would put their weak children out in the mountains to die? And the legend is that King Leonidas was left out and survived. So it kind of matches up with that a little bit. Hand up if you're still right.
Chapter 11 and 12 in the Green Book. Do you have a Green Book with you? You can come in here if you need to be away.
All right, next. Sorry about the interruption. This is a class. You still writing? No? Okay. Reality. About 1000 BC, Mediterranean invaders, known as the Latins, settled on the Palatine, a hill overlooking the Tiber River. They settled there because they had pleasant climate, fertile soil for growing crops, forests that provided timber, which is wood, easy access to the seas. Get back up. So you hear one legend, the legend of Romulus and Remus, and then you hear reality. Reality is not as exciting, right? So you're going to want to tell a more exciting story. You can't be a great people if you're just coming from people who wanted to settle in a place because it had good farming. That doesn't make you sound very important. Who's ready? Go back in. Anybody still writing? Hand up if you're still writing. Okay. You two give me a thumbs up when you're done. Next. Who are the Latins? They crossed into Italy around 1500 to 1000 BC. They settled Rome in the middle of Italy, built Rome on a set of hills because it had good farmland, easy to protect, and good for trade. Back up. Thumbs up when you're done. Next. Aeneid is the epic story of Aeneas. Now, remember, I told you yesterday, the Romans believed that the Greeks were super great and awesome. They loved everything about the Greeks. They considered themselves descendants of the Greeks. The Greeks had these two epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and they told this fantastical story about a hero, two heroes, Achilles and Odysseus. Well, the Romans wanted to be like them, so what they do is they take a minor character, Aeneid, from the Iliad and make their own story about him coming to Italy and founding the Romans. He led the Trojans around the Mediterranean, landed at the mouth of the Tiber River, married the king's daughter of the Latins, founder of the Romans. Do you see the connection between the Romans and the Greeks? They accept the story, but focus on a minor character. Now, eventually, the Romans will certainly surpass the Greeks and the Macedonians, But they want to carry on that legacy. Thumbs up when you're ready to go. Thumbs up. All right, next. Next again. Next again. The Etruscans, Italy's first civilized people. Around 800 BC, a group of people from Asia Minor we know is Turkey, settled north of the Tiber River. 600 BC, the Etruscans dominated the northern Italian peninsula, including the Latin village on the Palatine. Here's some of their ruins. Thumbs up when you're done. Next. So what were the Etruscans like? Next again. They borrowed ideas from the Greeks. The Etruscan alphabet was based on the Greeks. They had a strong army modeled after the Greek phalanx, but they had a secret weapon: shoes. Built cities on hilltops surrounded by walls. They worked hard to make the land livable by digging tunnels, building dams to drain marshy fields so they could farm and build. They were called the people of the sea. They were admired as traders and feared as pirates. Very interestingly enough, we kind of copy a little bit what the Etruscans do in our own nation's capital. Our own nation's capital is Washington, D.C., is built on this marshy land that we built dams and tunnels and canals and drained it out to make one of the most famous cities in the world. Very similar to what the Etruscans did. And thumbs up if you're done. Thumbs up. A lot of writing on this one? Okay. Still writing back there? You keeping up? Okay. Notice that they did not mind the reputation of being pirates. That wasn't a bad thing. That was a good thing. They admired, they liked being feared. The Romans are certainly going to be like that. Thumbs up. Hey, just do one. Okay, she can copy yours down when it's over. That'll move us along.
There's just a lot to mention.
Don't talk. Tell me thumbs up when you're done. Okay. Thumbs up, Carter. Next. Skilled metal workers and sculptors. Next again. Nope, back up. Back up again. There we go. Make sure, and I've told you this all year long, we don't think of people in ancient times as being dumb or like cavemen. Even cavemen were smart. Okay, cavemen could do some things that we couldn't do. Right? We knew that Ötzi the Iceman could tell different things to eat to protect himself that we couldn't do. Man is smart. Right? Next. Next again. Etruscans were polytheists, which means they believed in many gods. They modeled their gods after the Greek gods. They did believe in an afterlife, so they buried their dead with their possessions in an underground burial chamber called catacombs. If you want to just listen right now and then fill them in a minute, you can. Okay, but you still got to fill them in. All right. Next. There's an Etruscan catacomb. Raise your hand if you know, if you have an idea what that looks like. Which civilization does that remind you of? Egypt. Right? Does that not look like an Egyptian burial tomb or burial chamber? Sure it does. Next. There's some of their art. There's some more of their art. The Etruscans and how they influenced the Romans. So we're gonna come up on the Romans. The Romans are coming, so we're almost there. Next. Architecture. The Etruscans used the arch. An arch is a way to make a wall or some kind of structure using less material, using physics. So if you tilt this way, what you do is you could build a wall straight up. But the higher you go, eventually it's going to collapse because it can't support its own weight. So what you do is you build an arch. And you have something like a capstone or a keystone. I can't remember what it's called. And what it is the gravity will hit that and force the energy away. Thus, smaller material can hold up a larger amount of weight. Do we still use arches today? Oh, yeah. Not just McDonald's either. Everybody uses arches. Next. So here it looks like this. See? This is going to distribute the weight. The gravity will force it down, but it'll redistribute it. Guys, that is Roman ruins still standing over 2,000 years later. It looks like it was just built. They had a method of building that was meant to last. Next. The Romans used the arch to build bridges for their roads and to transport water in the aqueducts. We're going to talk more about aqueducts later. So that's going to be kind of a new thing for our definition of irrigation. Remember, we talked about irrigation in the past, which is moving water from where it is to where you want it. We did that with dams or levees and canals. Now we're going to start doing it with aqueducts. Next. Next again. They created, go up again. They created Rome's first sewer system to remove waste. The alphabet, the Etruscans borrowed and changed the Greek alphabet. The Romans later changed the Etruscan alphabet and made it into their own. Now, we're not going to turn the camera, but everybody look up at my Roman flag, the SPQR flag. Guys, you recognize those letters. We use those letters, right? That's the same letters we use. Where does it originally come from? It comes from here, modified by here, and then modified again here, but it's the same thing. Thumbs up. Next. Next again. Customs. Gladiator games were an Etruscan funeral custom. Next again. Romans later held these events for entertainment. What would happen is you have a wealthy person would take his favorite two slaves when he died, and then they would have a gladiator contest, and whoever didn't get killed got set free. Next again. There's the Colosseum Rome. Do we still have gladiator games? Wait. Don't talk, guys. We can't talk. Okay? Do we still have gladiator games? We absolutely do. What do you think MMA fighting is? Or boxing? Or football? Those are all gladiator games. Guys in armor crashing into each other. Okay? UFC fighting, that is 100% gladiator. Now, we don't take it to the death, right? But we absolutely still do this type of stuff. Sure we do. Next again. The Triumph. The Triumph was a parade to welcome back heroes when they returned home from battle. Guys, we do this today. When one of our sports teams or soldiers go on a parade, they return triumphantly. It means to win, right? Well, a triumph is this structure. It's a big building marking the battle. And so you march through your victory triumph and you come back triumphantly. That's where we get that word. Next again. Romans held triumphs for their war heroes. Do we have triumphs? Sure we do. We have triumphs today. Next. Up again. Who's still right? Thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Next. Next again. Number 5, they drained the swamp at the foot of the Palatine Mountain. This later became the place where Rome's Forum was built. The Forum was a public square like the Agora of Greece. You could find markets, a palace, government buildings, and law courts. I have never been to Europe because I am afraid to fly. But many of my family members have been there. My older brother in particular, he says this is just a spectacular thing. To walk in the places that these buildings are still standing. Not all of them are used, obviously. A lot of them are ruins. He said, but it's very moving to walk in an area that 2,000 years ago the Romans were. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Next. Early influences, Greek influence, farming and grapes, the alphabet, and architecture and literature. All of these Roman things were influenced by the Greeks. They admired the Greeks. We've talked about that many times. Hey, raise your hand if you know what kind of columns those are. Remember those Mr. Kendall's favorite? Mouthed. What letter does it start with? You saying a C? No, you're wrong. This is Ionic. The Ionic ones look like the scrolls on the top. The Doric are the plain ones. The Ionic are the scrolls. And the Corinthian are the flower of the vines. Next. Etruscan rule. They ruled Rome with dominance and had control for about 100 years. Rome became very wealthy and very powerful. But they had too much power under the Tarquin family and they were overthrown, which started the Republic of Rome. So the Etruscans basically built all the foundations, set it up, and then the Romans got rid of them. It's almost as if every civilization ends in bloodshed. And it does. Thumbs up. Next. So what's a republic? A republic is a form of government in which the leader is not a king or queen, but someone put in office by the citizens with their right to vote. We have a republic. Everybody says, well, we're losing our democracy, which is dumb. Okay? We have a republic. We elect people into positions of power so we can go about our business. Citizens have the power. Romans went to war for 200 years. They kicked out the Latins, the Etruscans, and the Greeks. So we're going to have a new thing under the Romans. Next. Rome became strong with its army. Every male landowner served in the army. They were good problem solvers. They could not leave the army without. You could not leave the army without dying. You could die in the army. That's why you could leave it, but you couldn't otherwise. They split each army into legions of 6,000 men. Each soldier had a sword, a spear, and a shield. Different types of shields, though. These shields, we're going to talk about this later. These shields were a lot different than the Greeks' rounded shields. And they have a punch thing on it. They use their shield as a weapon. I can't remember what the name of it is. We'll talk about it later. My brother will be very angry that I don't know the name of that buttress on their shield. Thumbs up. Next. Gaining new lands. They eventually controlled all of Italy. They built roads from Rome to all of their territories. They put military bases all around Italy. They gave full citizenship to certain groups of people, like the Latins. See, the Romans were smart. Instead of just going to war with people who lived in the same area as you, just give them citizenship. Make them part of you. We have tried to do that in America. Now, not always so good. Okay, there are some groups of people that come here that don't want to be like us. And we got to watch out for that. But when we're a nation of immigrants. Immigrants who want to come here and be like us are good. Okay, that just makes America stronger. People who come here and don't want to be like it's bad, they got to go, right? Even the Latins, once they gained citizenship, could vote and serve in the government. They made other allies. They paid taxes and provided troops. They could become citizens in the future. Look, that is a Roman road. That is a picture, not a drawing. That's a picture of a Roman road still being used. We can't have a road last more than 2 years. There are roads that lasted 2,000 years. Next. All right, let's finish up with these exit questions. Raise your hand if you know what the two brothers' names are. Romulus and Remus, right? Who were the Etruscans influenced by?